I am Saad in southeast London, and with me as usual is Gregory. Gregory, how are you and how is the weather where you are?
One is well. Well, it was bright today, but it's still very cold.
Exactly. Same here in London. It has been bright and chilly. Now the sun has set, so it's dark now. So welcome, listeners. As I said, this is the spiritual discussion program. Gregory, just go on mute while I'm speaking, please. Just
Okay.
okay, thank you. So, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdushin. And we have a new topic each week for the discussion. The discussion topic tonight is strive for goodness and purity. Strive for goodness and purity. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 07939 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. I'm going to begin with what is the GRAIL message? The GRAIL message in the light of truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The GRAIL message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the GRAIL message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the GRAIL message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the GRAIL message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we're having for discussion tonight is strive for goodness and purity. Strive for goodness and purity. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as you know, I like to always look the topic up in the dictionary, the words of the topic in the dictionary. And the topic for tonight is strive for goodness and purity. So the word strive, the dictionary meaning is make great efforts to achieve or obtain something. Can I check with you, Gregory? Is that a good definition for our discussion?
Of course it is. Good definition.
Okay.
However, those definitions must be looked into not only in our physical deeds, but also in our thoughts and also in our intuitions.
Very good. Yeah, sorry.
That word striving will capture all the different aspects which we wish to discuss.
Very good. So including thoughts and intuition as well. And physical as well. Okay. I'm just writing it down. Okay. Gregory, there's another definition. I just saw that I'm just looking at it now for striving or strive, and it says struggle or fight vigorously. Now, I don't think we mean it in a violent way.
That one doesn't really swing.
Right.
So one will decline to use that in one's striving.
I see.
Because striving, deep within it is peace that accompanies it rather than struggle to destroy others or something of that nature.
I see. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm going to go through all the words for tonight because I think it doesn't make sense to break it down. So the next word is goodness. I mean, it sounds, we don't need to look it up in the dictionary, but I'll do that. Goodness, the quality of being morally good or virtuous. And they gave an example actually in the sentence. It says, a belief in basic goodness of mankind. So let me repeat that. The meaning of the word goodness. And they're saying the quality of being morally good or virtuous. So again, Gregory, what do you say about this definition?
The words virtuous and morals are connected. Therefore, it goes close to that expression good. Yeah, because virtues also come in when one reflects on it. But the deeper meaning we'll go into subsequently.
Right. And again, Gregory, they've given another meaning in the dictionary for goodness. It says the beneficial or nourishing element of food.
Well, that is being limited to
Yes.
gross material, consumption.
Yes.
Yeah, it can be accepted, but it's not holistic. Goodness can be applied to other areas other than what someone consumes in terms of food.
Yes, and of course we can have a spiritual food as well.
Yes,
So they
spiritual
use the
food
word
as
bread
well.
for food. Yeah. So, like in the Lord's Prayer, give us our daily bread. And
Yes.
you might take it too literally, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll continue. So the next word, or the last word really, is purity. And the meaning here, the dictionary, it says freedom from adulteration or contamination. And their example they have chosen here is the purity of our drinking water. So it's freedom from adulteration or contamination. There's another one coming up after that, Gregory, but just let's talk about this one. What do you say on that one?
You will find that the word freedom being attached to it, no contamination. These are expressions which are pointers to what it is, but it is not, it doesn't touch at the core.
Okay. And I'm going to give you one more definition from the dictionary for purity. It says freedom from immorality, especially of a sexual nature.
Again, you will find that it touches on that word moral, and which verges on virtues. It's a state. It's a state of being in which all one's striving is towards that which the laws of creation wants it to be.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm just checking if I've received anything from someone. No, just making sure. So, what I'm thinking, Gregory, this word, strive for goodness and purity. And then I'm thinking about the world today, which we could say a lot of corruption and temptation, and let's say it doesn't sound easy to do that in today's world. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying the majority of people are bad or something, but somehow it's a troublesome world. So now, Gregory, this advice, you can say, I've called it a strive for goodness and purity. Does it mean to be done? Should it be taken like collectively as a group of people? Is it for individual? Let's go like that first. So, is it addressed for everybody, like as a group, or more specifically as individually?
First, it must be considered individually, because it is the individual that needs to cleanse itself of the wrong thoughts. And it is the collection of individuals that make a group. So it must be applied to the individual human personalities in the first instance. It is doable. It might be challenging, but the challenge is one must ask, who has brought these challenges into the environment? So the individual must strive to overcome these challenges in order to become good. Not just good in terms of being acceptable by nature, by neighbors or others, but good in the way in which creation wishes it to be.
Thank you for that. You've mentioned thoughts, and obviously there are words we speak as well, and there are deeds that we, I was going to say perform. So these are three things that you can say we are these are activities as human beings. I guess the deeds are really easy to see because we see them with our physical eyes, and words which are spoken, we can also see them in a sense, or they can be written, of course, as well.
Or we hear them.
Yes, and then there's the thoughts which we don't see. So let's take one by one. Let's start with deeds. It just makes sense. Strive for goodness and purity. In other words, you do good deeds, right? So I'm just trying to think now. Okay, let's start like this first, Gregory. So we have the human law, right? Which, well, not everybody, let's say, gets justice through the human laws. When somebody goes astray with their deeds, let's say, physical deeds that we see, stealing or whatever, not everybody, whatever it from acts, let's call them sin. Anybody who does sinful deed or breaks the law, even, let's call it that way, they don't all get caught and punished. So I'm thinking in a way, and some people can use that to think, oh, I got away with it. So Gregory, let's look at that. How are those deeds? We have talked about the natural laws in the past many times. How does, let's say, natural justice without the deeds that we perform, how does that take effect?
Well, at the beginning we discussed or we made mention of one's intuition, of one's thoughts, and also the visible deeds or the deeds which are perceptible to the five earthly senses. These are three different categories. The categories of one's intuition, the category of one's thoughts, and the category of the perceptible earthly deeds. These three categories help to form the environment around the individual. And therefore, you will find that each person, depending on how he or she contributes to this environment, that environment is strengthened or weakened around himself or herself. Therefore, having created that environment or formed that environment around the personality, returns, that means deeds of the past or new deeds in accordance with the laws of creation where there will be returns. These returns have an impact on the environment, the personal environment of the individual. If the returns are of a terrible nature and these returns meet the environment which is corrupt, then you will find that they will strike the individual severely. If the returns which are ignoble, if they arrive and the person has made enormous effort vigorously or strivingly, these ignoble returns will still approach the individual, but the effects will be greatly reduced because they will disintegrate and they will have not terrible effects on the individual. That in itself is justice. If the returns, which are good in this particular case, meet the person who has been striving for goodness, then the returns will penetrate to the individual and bring joy and happiness to the individual, whereas the other case it will be sorrow. So in accordance with the creative laws, this is justice in play, and this is the perfect justice that creation has in place.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory, and the picture you painted there. What you're saying there is that, like we, they say cause and effect. So we do something, and that creates the environment and the consequence of it. Although we don't, let's say, literally don't create it, that environment as such, but then, let's say, the laws, you could say almost what we put out, the laws manifest it for around us, and in the consequence of it. So, and then we get the result accordingly. If you do good, you get the good, and if you do the bad, you get the bad. So yeah, it's like you can see that as a picture, although you might not be able to sort of see that actually happening in front of your eyes, but you can make sense that could be how it works. So I know, Gregory, you mentioned the thoughts, words, and deeds in one go there. And I'm thinking, but the effect of thoughts and the effect of the words and the effect of the deeds are different. Some people are hurt when, let's say, nasty words are spoken or written, or especially in this modern world of social media. People are affected. They even can hide anonymously behind these words, even making threats. To people, especially famous people, you can say it happens a lot. So, Gregory, I'm thinking there's sometimes like you could say the words do more damage if they're nasty than the physical. Say if somebody punched you, yes, you feel the pain and hurt, but then if you write words, and especially like social media, nasty things, and they spread out to the world, you can say somehow it affects us more. So what I want to ask on that, Gregory, is it because when many people are involved, because it's one person with the deed, it's like one person doing the deed to another, maybe the impact is just limited to that. But when it's words, they reach out to many thousands of people, you could say, and it affects somehow us. So are we, Gregory, what I want to say is, when, because it's like people want to have a good, to feel good about themselves, but when they're being exposed, let's say, with nasty comments, which they know is reached out to the many people outside, it has a bigger impact. So is that really so, that somehow that the, let's say, the non-physical, the words have more impact than the physical deed?
Words have impact, just like words are also physical,
Oh,
because words are physical because the the tool for the perception is physical, because you have to hear the words, but if it is written, you have to now read these words and take them in. But words basically are physical because we have the outer ear to listen to the words, just like you yourself are listening to me and I'm listening to you. The written word or spoken word which is recorded and then transmitted to many a person on the outside, it has the effect of an avalanche because many other people get to hear of it, and these words, which are not complementary, generate something, some form of reaction from those people who have read of it or have heard of it. And it is the collective, the accumulations of these thoughts that many people are afraid of or try to evade. If the words or if what has been put out there is not complementary but very critical, you will find others will add their own impressions to it to make it more critical. Only very few will examine the authenticity of such which has been put out. And this sort of thing, people not being very strong within themselves, these sort of words have a direct impact on their psyche because they become moody. These words or the reaction from others, these reactions which are in thoughts basically, some of them release as words, they float in the ethereal, in their thoughts, and the words themselves, the accumulation of these thoughts directed against one individual, if the individual is able to perceive, if he or she is very sensitive to it, then they will have an adverse effect on the individual. If the individual is not sensitive to such, then that channel through which they may have an impact is minimized.
right. And thank you for that answer and picture again. So it's like how somebody responds to these words, who's the subject of those words, is on their, depends on that person how they take it. So it's not just, oh, some nasty word and it means automatically I will, let's say I'm the target of these nasty words. It doesn't automatically mean that just because they're nasty words that I will, let's say, feel depressed or down because of that. It's how
Yeah,
I am.
just to
Yeah, go
add
on.
a bit to it, nowadays it can be very confusing because nowadays you say something is cool, whereas it is really not cool. There are some colloquial words which are used nowadays, and sometimes they say it is very wicked, but it is not wicked,
Mm.
because things have been so twisted that one needs to know the context in which they are used to be able to respond appropriately. Because the modern, so-called modern man or modern woman, there are many words which have been used, and you have to belong to a clique to be able to understand what they are talking about. And so it now varies, so that it's now very difficult to say precisely this would be the effect of this particular word on this person. Because when you say this looks cool, the impression, the word itself is cool, but the impression which people have in their mind is different. Or this looks hot.
Okay. I'm going to talk on that a bit more in a moment, Gregory. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Uptrushin. And if you wish to get more information on the GRAIL message or want to get a copy of the GRAIL message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is strive for goodness and purity. Strive for goodness and purity. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, live stream. That's to listen to the live show. You can also listen to the recording of this show the next day. Again, go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, GRAIL message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is strive for goodness and purity. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's Zeno. .fm/Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, we're talking about, the impact of deeds, thoughts, and words, especially the words in the last question. And we said the impact of the words can be, more severe than the physical action, although you said words are also physical. So, meaning that we can hear them and, we read them and speak them. So, yes, in that sense, they're physical, although you can't see them. Now, and then you mentioned also about, let's say, the twisting of the words, where people refer to something as cool or wicked when they mean the opposite. I don't know what the word meaning of what I mean by what the word is for that when they play with it. But mostly we know if people are joking or they mean something different from what the word is. So just going to that, Gregory, when people in quotes twist that word to have a different meaning to the actual meaning, as I say, we get that people know when that is happening. So if somebody is saying something which is not really, the word itself is not abusive, like you say, normally the example is, for example, they use the word wicked, which normally would be something bad or nasty, but actually they're referring to something that is good. They mean good by that. So let's just think a little bit more on that. So that's not a nasty example, but maybe we'll just go with it anyway. So when, Gregory, people, let's say, I don't know if I can call it abuse, but let's say twist the meaning of the word, but we sort of know what it means, the actual meaning, what they mean, let's say. Now we're saying we have to strive for goodness and purity. So, and I'm talking, sometimes people are doing it jovially, this twisting of the words. So would you say, Gregory, when something is done jovially, which is twisting of these words, for example, is that against being purity, against goodness and purity?
One, in the discussion at the beginning, we made mention of one's intuition. We made mention of one's thoughts, and also mention of one's deeds. These deeds are perceptible using the 5 senses. In this particular case, the tool for perception is the ear, which is to perceive the words. On the other hand, we have the thoughts. The words have been used. The thoughts behind these words is different. The intuition behind these words is different. So this becomes like figures of speech which have been used differently. Look at it very carefully. It is assumed that there should be harmony between one's intuition, one's thoughts, and one's physical activities, of which the 5 senses are the channels. But in this particular scenario you yourself just mentioned, the words do not really paint the picture which is behind the thought or behind, or the intuition which is behind the thoughts. So you find that these 3 do not really agree, but may be taken as figures of speech to express something extreme in a positive way. Then the question is, does this violate purity? One will not say that per se, because you have the case of a painter or of a musician who uses expressions to paint a picture, which is what they themselves are doing. Although it would have been better if the three, that is one's intuition, one's thoughts, and one's actions physically are transparent in this particular case. So does it violate the purity? To some extent, because unless you know the context and you belong to that group, it will not be very clear to one when you say something is wicked, when really it is very kind, or when you say something is bad, when it is very good. These are just play of words which the so-called modern society uses.
Thank you for that, Gregory. What I was thinking is, when there's comedy, they do, in quotes, twist the words to have the comedic, value in it. Because when finally people find something strange or it's put in a funny way, that's when they start to laugh, So,
Correct.
yeah.
Correct.
So I'm thinking that's not a violation of being good or being pure. It's just that's just well, you can call it art. In other way. It's only one aspect.
That was why one said, like a painter or like a musician, just to stress this thing. This is what these quirks or these expressions makes one to look at the opposite and make many a person smile. So these are, like one says, figures of speech, which are put in such a way to let you have a deeper insight. But you yourself must have understood the context in which these things are used. Because if you go to another society and use it in such a way, they'll say, well, you said it's bad, and therefore it was thrown away. Whereas that's not what was meant. So one has to be in the know. The language is always evolving anyway, so these are all the different paths which one has to consider in one's life here on earth.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Now I want to take a different type of an example. Let's say somebody's sick, and then even in hospital, let's say they're there, and then their relatives want to pray for that person, and you can say they want to send good thoughts to help that person recover. And so now, does that really work as well, Gregory?
Of course, good thoughts only in accordance with the laws of creation, only those thoughts are helpful. For the good thoughts which resonates with one's intuition, these intuition has the ability to attract power. And in focusing on the signposts, that is the person concerned, if these particular personalities, if the particular personality's environment permits of that which is noble, then these signposts or attracts that power, that goodness which is attached to it. If, however, the person being prayed for, the person that is being sent good thoughts in accordance with the creative laws, if that person's environment does not permit these thoughts to enter, then they are of no effect.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. You can see the perfect justice in these activities, because if somebody doesn't want them to have any help, you could say, from outside, which is in this case we're talking about thoughts, healing thoughts, and then the attitude is not for that, then the thoughts won't have, let's say, the required response, because the person doesn't want that. So it doesn't go against, let's say, your free will. If you don't want something, it doesn't mean somebody can send you what their wishes are. It's what you yourself are open to, that's what's going to be feasible, not just because somebody else is trying to send something, their own thing, to you. So that sort of shows that there's a justice there. And of course, if it does align, where the person wants that help, and then the other person who's praying for them, then these thoughts can align, and then of course the result will be, let's say, more helpful, let's say. Now, Gregory, another thing is, again, going along the line of sending good thoughts to someone who's sick or ill, not always that, these thoughts or prayers, do they have the result that a person is healed or, recovered. So that we're told it is strive for goodness and purity, but it's not a guarantee for the, let's say, the good result, if I can call it that way, for the recovery. So why is that?
The striving towards goodness and purity is or should be such that streams of power which are beneficial to the personality can only reach one in accordance with the creative law of the attraction of homogeneity. When these streams that are, or streams of energy which are beneficial when they arrive, if they are not precisely of the frequency, that is, of the purity in which the human personality can absorb, then they will not penetrate. It's like waves of energy. Only when they resonate with the end point to where it is directed, only in that case is the personality able to sort of attract. That attraction of homogeneity depends on the purity. If it is not pure enough, then you will have only part of that beneficial streams of power we touch the person or we enter into the person. Whereas if that person strives after purity of thoughts, purity of activities, then these beneficial streams will reach that particular personality.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. When you were answering, I was thinking maybe the person who's praying for the person who's sick is not putting enough, how can I say, you need to put more effort into it. When I'm saying the result is not of what they want to recover, doesn't happen, it's maybe they haven't, in quotes, prayed enough, or, you know, so is there some, I'm using like a, it sounds a little bit technical now, is there some sort of measure that you need to put so much effort or so much amount, and then the result will happen?
Actually, in the so-called prayer, that should be done in simplicity and purity, in such a way as not to dictate how the wellness of the person being prayed for, how that is how it's going to manifest. For in simplicity, one makes a request. How the solution is going to manifest varies. First, depending on the level of simplicity, because you do have people who, instead of making simple requests, dictate how the solution will be found. Therefore, they already weaken the effect of the returns, because these returns are already being channeled into rigid structure, whereas the movement, the motion in creation is very flexible. One can also consider the other case where one is, in quotes, praying for good returns. However, at the same time, you find that his or her intuitions, vary very far from how these solutions will manifest. It is best to ask very simply in one's prayer, not dictating how the returns will be.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. It shows, you can't have some set way that this is how it must be, as you say, with your own expectation. And really, the main thing is you must have humility and flexibility, like you say. The way it can come, how can I say, the effect of your prayer or thoughts, how they return, it can come in many ways. So if you have a fixed idea how it will be manifesting, then and if it's not the one that is going to happen in this case, then obviously you'll be disappointed. Thank you. I'm trying to think. Now, Gregory, let's say you have performed some misdeed, and you realize that is a misdeed, and you know that, as we know the laws, you do an action, there has to be a consequence or reaction. Now, say of course, we don't control like we already said, the timetable of when the consequence is going to come back to us. But sometimes we don't want to have this. Let's say we've done a misdeed, and we don't want the bad consequence of the misdeed to hit us. So can we pray or send out some thoughts to, let's say, I was going to use the word bypass, but to, how can I say, to not even eliminate, but how to, so to, yeah, how to, could that eliminate the misdeed, the fate of the misdeed? Is there a way to sort of wipe away that, the effect? The negative effect, let me say the bad, because if you do a bad misdeed, you can expect something bad to happen to you. So is there a way to sort of, in quotes, avoid it?
At the beginning of our discussions, we did make mention of that there are always returns. For the laws of motion already dictate that having set something, having triggered something in creation, there will be returns, reciprocal activity. However, before the reciprocal activity hits the individual, if he or she has so ennobled himself such that the environment in thoughts, in intuition, are purer and purer, when these returns come, they will disintegrate because they are unable to penetrate and have an incisive effect or impact on the personality. In that case, the returns will veer off. Therein lies the perfect justice. So one cannot say the returns will not come. But when the returns come, you yourself have so ennobled yourself in your striving, in your good striving, that the environment around you is so bright, just as you have the environment on the earth, such that any missile coming from the outside is either held up or burnt out, or it will miss the earth. Therefore, one needs not be worried about such, as long as one is persistent. One is persistent in one's striving after goodness.
Thank you so much for that answer, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdushin. If you are interested to know more about the GRAIL message or want to get a copy of the GRAIL message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell it. It's www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is strive for goodness and purity. Strive for goodness and purity. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39641958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube the next day. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space GRAIL Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is Strive for Goodness and Purity. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, when we're looking at the definition of the words in the topic tonight, which is strive for goodness and purity. So when we're looking at the word good or goodness, in the dictionary, we found it talks about the quality of being morally good or virtuous. So I've been thinking about morality or moral. And now this, you can say some people have their idea, one person's idea of what is moral may not be the same as another person. Let's say they have different morals. How are the morals defined, Gregory? Is it by God or, how do the morals, how are they defined?
One must strive to give a clearer example. In accordance with the laws of creation, the human personality set off from its origin, the paradise of man, in order to experience. It set out as an unconscious spirit germ. And in that journey, it becomes conscious of its environment, of its surrounding, of itself, and subsequently, those innate qualities which have been implanted into it, it's able to cultivate them so that they become useful to it and they are able to guide it. These qualities are what one refers to as the virtues. The virtues of faithfulness, of truthfulness, of grace, of modesty, of courage, of skill. All these, one may refer to them as the virtues. Therefore, any activity which serves to enhance the fulfillment of that promise, which promise is basically that the human spirit now strives to become self-conscious any activity as such which supports that premise is good, it's virtuous. These activities may be pleasant. Sometimes they are unpleasant, depending on the state of the human personality. Therefore, it is important that the goal of the human personality of becoming self-conscious to become a useful tool in creation, to be able to absorb of the streams of power in creation, in the world of matter, to make use of these streams of power and also to pass it on to others, if that is the aim, to also ennoble others, then it is good. Then this idea of a moral behavior being different to another person, that will not occur. For a very simple instance, here you do have a person who is musically endowed, playing some instruments which is of benefit not only to he himself or herself who is involved in this activity, but also to the pleasures of others. Is that not noble? Is that not virtuous? Is that not of high moral excellence? So one should look at the context of the laws of creation, of what we as human personalities have come to do. For he or she who receives must make use of what they have received, not only to benefit them, but also to the benefit of others.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. There's a bit at the beginning, I think I just didn't hear, I wasn't paying attention, if I'm honest, just to get clarity for me. So about knowing, let's say, basically, as you said, we start as unconscious spirit beings, and the idea is to experience, and through experiencing, we become conscious. And so what I was wondering, what I missed, I think, Gregory, if you can fill me in there, was it in the experiencing that when we are becoming conscious, is that how we sort of recognize, you could say, morality or virtues, is in the process of becoming conscious?
In the process of becoming conscious, we become more aware of that which we need to achieve. That means in that state of becoming more aware, in which we diligently or modestly or gracefully engage in our activity, we take it to a great height. In that particular way, we show high moral standard. The moral standard, which is that there is a particular virtue which we need to cultivate, and we take it to the highest possible standard. That is what is referred to. For creation, the way the examples are shown to us, is that there is a particular purpose for a particular virtue. The challenge has always been the distortion. That which would have been a virtue becomes a vice. Where one should have had simplicity and goodness, pride comes in. And pride or greed or envy is now called morality. So it is the distortion of these virtues of what we should do that has clouded what morality is. Had we stayed with the virtues in cultivating these virtues which had been sown into us, then we will know nothing of slothfulness. That means being slow in our activities, or gluttony, which means we overeat, or lust, which lust is what is shown in many activities between the man and the woman, or envy, because of our laziness. We try to envy what others are doing without even making the necessary effort for ourselves. Or greed. Man will continue to eat until he can eat no more. So these, the opposites of the virtues, is what has been cultivated so far due to lack of knowledge or due to laziness.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. Obviously, you can say if you look at two people, there'll be a different level of consciousness because no two people are the same, and which means their level of awareness, morality. Everybody can choose whether to follow or not to follow. Of course, each one is free to do that. But then the level of awareness and the level of knowing what is morally right, virtuous or not, will be different. Any two people that you come across. So I'm wondering there. In that sense, everybody's on their own journey, right? To consciousness and to their, let's say, salvation. I'm not quite sure how to put that, but so I'm trying to think of that. So if there are two people, different people, and they come to interact somehow, what I'm thinking, Gregory, is when there's, as I said, different awareness, different consciousness, and those two people interact, and let's say one does some deed to the other, maybe let's call it misdeed, for example, here. Does it mean when they get the consequence, Gregory? Because I'm trying to think when Jesus said, forgive them for they know not what they do. So when you get your consequence of your misdeed, is it according to the level of your consciousness? That because, I know certain things are very clear and cut, like let's say you steal, then I don't think anybody can deny they don't know what is stealing, and if they've done the stealing. So they should expect something from that. But sometimes when we're talking people of different level of consciousness and one does the misdeed, is there, how can I say, the consequence of that misdeed, is it the same for everybody? Or is it dependent on when I say the same for everybody, what I mean really is, does the how can I say, the result of the return of the misdeed, is it depending on your consciousness, level of consciousness?
The returns in creation is independent on the lack of knowledge or not the lack of knowledge. The returns will always come. However, when one had that expression, forgive them, for they know not what they do, that is a personal request For when an activity has been set in which a knot has been tied, a knot which has been tied through the activity of one person on another. So those are personal knots. When the other person who is adversely affected realizes the low level or the state of the other person and consciously severs that knot by forgiving, the returns will still come. However, the effect will be minimized in the sense that that person that has done the forgiving also sent good thoughts to help the person that has committed such an atrocity. One can say it in the case of Stephen. When Stephen, at that time, Christ had left, and they were preaching the gospel, when those around them, out of envy and out of hatred, stoned him to death. And Stephen, in realizing the low level of behavior, the immoral level of behavior of these people, pleaded to him who is, and said, Lord, forgive them this sin. At that moment, that knot which would have tied Stephen to them, that knot was severed. And here, Stephen pleading, even for those who were crucifying him. The same happens almost in everyday experiences. Whatever a man or a woman has sown, that is what he or she must reap. However, if the person who did the sowing has changed, has so well ennobled himself or herself, then the impacts of the returns on the person are minimized. If, however, the person has not changed, has not been striving to ennoble himself in good thoughts in the service of others, then the impact will still materialize and will be very incisive. These cannot be changed, for motion itself is a law in creation. Therein lies the love and also the justice. The love and the justice being one.
Thank you very much for this answer, Gregory. Listening to what you just said there and something you said earlier, our thoughts and can, affect the environment around us, and at first you were thinking, oh, as an individual, you can just, let's say, affect what you do. But then, what you just said about Stephen there, he's saying something to forgive the people who have done something against him, and that is having an impact on others, not just what he's doing. Really what I'm saying now, Gregory, is we can change, one person, let's say, can change the world, if I can say, or change the environment of the world. it seems very hard to think because or to see, because there's millions and billions of us doing each one doing their own thing and having affecting the whole world. Okay, you can say majority are going in one way, and so that is having the major effect. So what I want to say, ask Gregory, can one individual with their striving in purity and goodness, let's say wanting a better world, somebody strive, sending that out as a wish or a prayer or a thought, can this one person, let's say, affect the world, the big world, or it's only them, or the area around them that they can impact?
Of course, when one person that wishes to be of help to others can send out prayers for help, and the returns might be enormous to help others. However, the states of others, this help, which help is always there, for that is how creation has been arranged. But the human personality must open itself to this help, which help has been well structured in creation, which help is strengthened by prayer of those of noble intentions. If the help is always there and the human personality refuses to harmonize with this help, then this help will not have an impact in them. Here, consider our discussions in which radio waves are propagated. Only those who have the right environment to be able to pick up these waves. These waves are always there, out there, but the human personality must attune itself, must purify itself, such that there is not noise to distract it. There are many who are easily distracted by noise, and that which is beneficial, they are unable to partake. So, one person can be of value in asking for help through prayer, which prayer, the response to it, strengthening the help which is already available, but the free will of man is always there to resonate, to partake of this help or not to partake of this help. That is what the justice of the Almighty, which is woven into creation, cannot change. For it is the human personality that determines whether he or she wishes to be or not to be. The instruments, the support to be for ennoblement are always there. They are not withdrawn. It is the human personality that ignores the help which is available and proceeds to its own doom.
Thank you for this answer there, Gregory. Now, another question I've got there, Gregory. Are good thoughts and let's say deeds and words more powerful than dark thoughts, words and deeds?
Good thoughts are light. Good thoughts in accordance with the creation laws. Good thoughts which are strengthened by one's intuition, in which they draw that power which is of value. Whereas that, those thoughts which are dark are heavy. One can easily give you an example when one is moody. Have you ever seen someone who is moody always being cheerful? Many a person wants to attach themselves to those people who are joyous, who are filled with happiness, who are not of mood, because they feel attracted. Whereas the heavy dark thoughts that gives many a person terrible moods, gives many a person headache, many try to move away from. So the good thoughts which resonate with one's intuition in accordance with the laws of creation, these good thoughts attract goodness, and that has an impact also on their thoughts and also on their deeds in what they wish to achieve. Whereas the bad thoughts, the heavy ones, have the negative effect, brings many a person down.
Thank you for that. But what I was wondering, so is the light thought or good thought more powerful than the dark or the light one? Than the dark or let's say evil thoughts. Are they the goods are? They say good triumphs over evil. So is there something like that with the power of good over the evil?
Creation came into existence out of goodness. So that which is good will always triumph over that which is evil. Evil only came through the misuse of the power in creation, the misuse which must have come first out of ignorance or out of laziness or out of the not wanting to struggle or not wanting to strive to understand. So that which is good will always subsequently triumph over that which is not good, that is, which is dark.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Blessed Radio. It's a Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the GRAIL message by Abdushin. And if you're interested to know more about the GRAIL message or want to get a copy of the GRAIL message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is strive for goodness and purity. If you have any questions or comments, you can join in this discussion with on this UK number. Contact us on a UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space GRAIL Message, space the topic of the show, which tonight is Strive for Goodness and Purity. So you can listen to the recording the next day after the show. And of course you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, especially in earthly things, we say, and we have to make decisions in life, and let's say we think with our head sometimes, or let's say we think with the head and we think with the heart, or we feel with the heart, let's say. Now, should we listen only to the heart, or let's say reject whatever the head says, or take both of them into account somehow?
You yourself already said the head and the heart. By the head, that is the center of our thoughts. By the heart, that is the center of our intuition. That means the human personality, the spirit. So we have, on the one hand, one's intuition, on the other hand, one's thoughts, and finally, one's physical deeds, which are implemented through the 5 senses. It is of importance to harmonize these 3 different categories. For the intuition has an impression on our thoughts, and our thoughts should have an impression on our physical activity. But you yourself know, just like every other person, that many times what our thinking is different from what our physical activities are. Like you find in many times in politics, or when you want to cheat. At the same time, we also know, or we also sense, what our intuition is different from what our thoughts are. So you find there is no alignment between one's intuition to one's thought and then one's physical activities. That has always been the challenge. Should a human personality strive to ensure that that deep intuition, which from the heart, has a good impact on our thoughts such that they become ennobled. Then, in all simplicity, consequently, the activities, the earthly activities, which is which necessitates we putting these into actions physically, will subsequently be ennobled. For we will proceed in such a way so as to ensure only that which is good in accordance with what we have picked up in our thoughts and also what the thoughts have picked up in one's intuition. So that intuition, thoughts, and activities, they need to be harmonized. Else, what you may have is the scenario where things run into a quagmire. And that has always been the challenge. All must be taken into consideration. For it is man himself who finally has to account for all that he himself has initiated or not initiated.
Thank you for this answer there, Gregory. You mentioned the word politics there, and my next question, although I know this is not meant to be a politics show, but something's happening in the news at the moment, and I thought it's appropriate that we can talk about it in our show tonight. Probably people in Europe are aware more than elsewhere, but our UK Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has made a deal with the EU concerning Northern Ireland, or Ireland as well, I guess, with, let's say, it's governing trade, but it's a bit more than just that, because as we know, there have been some division in views of how to move forward there in that in Northern Ireland, with people having opposing views, which has caused, they called it, come to a, well, let's say they came to a halt in their parliament to work there for some time. And now it seems the Prime Minister, UK Prime Minister, has come up with a breakthrough deal, working with the EU to overcome all these obstacles, where people have you could say, some people have some hardened views about how they believe their independence should, how the country should work. And let's say different, because of different agreements, it's like there had to be a compromise to achieve it and sort of satisfy certain, how can I say, people's fundamental requirements. And it seems that, after some years of work, 1 year of work, they seem to have come to some sort of a deal. Now, the thing is, let's say a lot of people who were not happy with the existing situation, it looks like some of them have moved in favor of this new deal, and others are still assessing. And but my point is, Gregory, as we say in the show many times, we say all for one and one for all, and there's, always people with different views, and you, in quotes, you want to have everybody happy and have harmony, but sometimes it seems impossible because some people don't want to shift from their position, and then when they don't shift, it affects everybody else because they can't do things. So what I want to ask, Gregory, is it, do you have to consider everybody's, when this is such a difficult situation happens, do you have to look at everybody's sort of wishes and requirements, and then, how can I say, like it seems that is what has happened here, and to satisfy these people, and and to convince them that is in everybody's favor. Is there some, what I'm pointing to, Gregory, is there, where you're saying strive for goodness and purity, maybe the person has to show that actually this is for good for everybody, and something like that, rather than it's my interest or your interest.
The question many a person must ask themselves, before the so-called Brexit, was there peace, relative peace and happiness in that region? If yes, that means they lived in such a way, one for all and all for one. Now that something has been brought in which upset that one for all and all for one, then that which has been brought in must itself be faulty. So the adjustments must be done by what has been brought in, which sort of upsets the peace and harmony in that particular place. Whether it is compromise, whatever it is called, it's immaterial. Because right there was peace and harmony 10, 20 years ago when they all agreed. If something is working harmoniously, why upset it? These are the questions which politicians must answer, because it was they themselves who, without any forethought, put things in place which upsets peace and harmony. So they themselves will have to adjust, will have to work hard to ensure the peace and harmony which was there, which they upset, they bring it back. How they have to do it is their own personal challenges.
Thank you for this answer, Gregory. What I noticed, let's say when the original deal was made in Brexit, it was maybe rushed and there were outstanding matters which were not resolved. And maybe some people thought, oh, we'll get, people will forget and we'll carry on. But of course, that didn't happen, because there were people who were upset, like you said, and they weren't just going to let it go. And in this case, they had quite a powerful way to make sure they get what they want, because they weren't happy. So, nobody could just run away from that situation. And so what I'm pointing to, Gregory, they sort of rushed something which wasn't really resolving all the issues. And in the end, until they can resolve those issues, which let's say took a year or another year, 2 years maybe, until it was so properly resolved, the peace will not happen. So, what I'm pointing to also, Gregory, people have to be bold, to achieve some goal of peace and harmony. It's not just talking and saying, oh yes, this is something, we've done it. As they always said, we've done, Brexit is done, but obviously it wasn't. I know I don't have a question there, but I just thought that's a reflection of this.
But the reflection should always be that if you have a community where they have peace and harmony, the reflection should be, do not introduce that which will cause or which will disturb the peace and the harmony. Because it was that which was introduced without careful forethought, without careful intuitions, that precipitated the crisis. The crisis wasn't there. That crisis had been dealt with years ago, and people were living their lives supporting one another. And then came another system which has not been thought carefully through, wishing to blow up their personal egos, and now introducing, precipitating all sorts of problems which the people there had not even imagined because they were not part of it. So, the lesson for all people that many should reflect very deeply before they then jump into something in order to fulfill their personal ambitions. If their personal ambitions is to be of benefit to the people of that community, then they should not introduce anything which should be of catastrophe, which will violate peace and harmony. That is what many a person wants, unless you have persons who, one way or the other, have their personal ambition to the detriment of others.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. It just reinforces our topic, which is strive for goodness and purity. If you do not strive for goodness and purity, then don't be surprised that, which in other words, you're doing your own selfish thing. So don't be surprised when it hits you in the face or backfires. You must only strive for this goodness and purity, which is, like we have said many times, is all for one and one for all. That has to be the attitude or aim in any activity,
Correct.
if you want success.
Correct.
So thanks. That's why I thought it was very appropriate. I know it's not signed and sealed by everybody yet, this new deal, but it looks promising, even if some people are still finding issues. But hopefully, even we're getting shocks, Gregory, that some people, when they signed that Brexit or voted for Brexit, I'm talking about the MPs and the parliamentarians, didn't read the whole documents properly. They just listened to whatever the Prime Minister was telling them. And they just took that is going to work. And guess what? As we said, they didn't prepare properly. So, of course, it fell apart. And this, as I said, they said it was Brexit is done, and obviously it wasn't done. So we must examine, as we say every time in the GRAIL message, weigh and examine.
Precisely.
If you don't do it, then you get the slap on your face.
Precisely. It may even be worse than that.
Exactly, yes. It's people are suffering. Slap is even a minor word. It's a suffering of the people, which is how can I say, people ignored it. They said, well, they're not. Let's say Northern Ireland is not considered it's that important compared to the rest of UK. So maybe they said, we don't worry about them. But of course, as I said, backfired. Now, okay. Striving for goodness and purity. So I'm just thinking how Gregory, we said all these morals and virtues we are supposed to get through experiencing and becoming conscious. But how about the spiritual teachings and even what we have in the GRAIL message and other teachings? Don't we need to, we say GRAIL message is a spiritual knowledge. Does it not mean that we should learn something, because what I'm trying to point to is experiencing enough there to say strive for goodness and purity, but don't we have to learn and study, I use the word study in quotes, to gain the knowledge somehow for morality? And
only through practice. When something is used, only through such a way does it bring benefit to the individual. Benefit in the sense that the three areas, one's intuition is involved. By one's intuition, the sixth of this is the soul or the human spirit. Then, on this other side, there is one's thoughts, which thoughts are used to guide, to a large extent, earthly activities. And then there is the physical activities where the deeds are perceptible through the senses, the five senses. So these three major areas, they do harmonize. Only when these three areas are fully involved can one say there is an experience. Else, the experience is not complete. For that which the spirit, through its intuition, intends to fulfill, that reality can only be fulfilled when it has an impact beneficially on one's thoughts. The thoughts have an impact beneficially on one's physical activities. Only in that pattern will the power streams that flow in creation reach first the human spirit, which has now put it in use through one's intuition, which intuition has a strong impact on one's thoughts, and which thoughts now make it manifest through the physical deeds here on earth. That is what is referred to as the full experience. And in any invention or in the case of music, no matter how beautiful the music is, this music would have been perceived intuitively, and the music is there at us, unless we ourselves translate that into the music which is perceptible and enjoyable by others, then that movement, which is music, still remains where it is. It has not become an experience for us in total or for the community. So one can see how these things go. The experience has to be had. The same thing with when one reads some literature and one perceives of something. We ruminate it through our thoughts, and basically in our activities of the virtues, through diligence, through wisdom or humility, unless these things are put into use, then it will not permeate our physical body or permeate our thoughts as such. Therefore, you will have, no matter how wonderful the teaching is, spiritual, first, the Spirit makes use of it, passes it through our thoughts, which now has impacts on our physical activities, in which many a time we talk of compassion, because we now have experienced it first in spirit, or wisdom, or courage, or selflessness. He or she who receives does not hold it for himself as in the case of music, but makes use of it and passes it on for the enjoyment of others. The same thing with grace, with modesty, with truthfulness, with faithfulness, with steadfastness. These are the qualities which then manifest physically, which many others are able to perceive with the senses, the five senses here on earth.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for this answer. You've, you know, it shows what effort is necessary, for us to become conscious and, grow and mature for our, let's say, our purpose, to achieve our purpose, to become self-conscious human beings. Now we've come to the end of the show, listeners. Hope you enjoyed this topic tonight. Strive for goodness and purity. So, of course, we urge you to do that. And I want to finish with just a few words this time, which is at the beginning of the GRAIL message. And it says, free yourself from all darkness. He who makes no effort to grasp the word of the Lord aright burdens himself with guilt. So, listeners, that's from the GRAIL message. If you want to get more information on the GRAIL message, or want to get a copy of the GRAIL message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, we've come to the end of the show, like I said. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing them a very beautiful week ahead.
Thanks. And the same for me, listeners. Have a great week. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. Good night. God bless.